Do not adjust your radio dial. You are tuned in to the Mark Order Podcast. Join the Mark Order.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. Mark Order Podcast coming to you live, but from a day later, a taped episode of Dynamite for Title Tuesday this week. But we're still here in your Wednesday slot. We're hanging out, talking some Mark Order. We're going to get into Wrestle Dream. We're going to get into yesterday's Dynamite, some news and notes, of course, but Taylor Cannon in the chat saying hi. If you are watching this, please leave a thumbs up on this video for the algorithm boost. Helps us out. We could use it. And please leave a 5-star review as well if you are listening in podcast form. We always appreciate it. But on delayed but not denied here at the Mark Order, we've got Joe, we've got Ryan. I'm going to start with Joe because I like him the best. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing well. I don't think we're delayed. I feel like we're right on schedule. It's not our fault that someone decided to bump their show due to hockey or baseball or whatever else we're bumping it.
To be honest, like, we're early by an hour. So really, they came too early. So BlueChew.com, code FIGHTFUL for them, as Mariah May said on commentary. Plugging Blue Chew over there. But we also have Ryan, who, in the face of adversity, is sporting his Phillies hat. They did get eliminated from the playoffs today. Even though Ryan has the wardrobe of someone who would be like throwing their TV out the window and like very upset about this, he's not that guy at all. So don't be deceived by the uniform of that guy, of a backwards hat and a t-shirt on, because that is what that guy wears. But we don't have aggro energy on this podcast, thank God. But we do have Ryan here tonight, who I have broken already into this podcast. Ryan, you can never. It's up to you. You can either do your best impression of that guy, or you can just be yourself. You can be fun scale Ryan, or you can be.
I'm laughing too much to do that impression. I have been accused of looking like when I was in college of looking like a frat boy and all that stuff. I don't think I've ever been accused of of looking like the guy who would smash things.
Well, because I think it's just because we're getting old now. Like, you expect that behavior out of like college kids, I feel like, or like young 20s. Now we're at the point where it's like you should be able to get over sports related losses and have some perspective in life. But some people can't, and usually they're wearing a backwards hat and a solid color shirt when they can't. Normally a football jersey, though, I feel like, to be honest.
I could throw one on if you want, but listen, you get 3 to 5 minutes of sadness, and then I move past it.
You really do. It's actually very impressive, because I'm not someone that takes sports too seriously, but it'll linger a little bit longer. You really are like, oh, man, that sucks. And then you really move on rather quickly, because you're like, let's get back to the fun scale.
I'm very much willing to use a grimace pun if we need to. Like, the game made me grimace.
That's fair. At
the end of the day, my life's no different tomorrow than it was today. I didn't bet on it. Maybe if I gambled, I'd care.
That's impressive for a Philadelphia sports fan.
It really is.
Well, I've been trained. Like, what's the Batman Bane quote? You adopted the darkness. I was born into it. Like, I get a text from friend of the show, Greg, and he sends a tweet that someone sent out, which was in 2022. We were in the World Series with a 2-1 lead, and we were in the Super Bowl with a 24-10 lead, and we lost both. So, like, I've watched the Stanley Cup get lost in front of me. I've watched the Sixers. I've watched Ben Simmons pass away an easy layup in a Game 7 of a Sixers thing. I'm immune at this point. I've been hurt too much.
That's fair. You were born to a city of losers, and I said on Twitter, like, that's what you get for getting everybody who was there for WrestleMania sick. That's that you gave us our own Philly special when we all tried to go to WrestleMania in your city. And so
I didn't get sick.
You didn't, because you're immune, because you live there. That's how that worked. That's how
you guys just couldn't handle the sexy genes that are in the area. and I can. So
I think there was something more in the water, but we do have some more people that have filed into the chat. We've got Scott George, we've got 1LT Photo, we've got Kylie, who we love so much, and of course Lord Kev, who's always shouting us out, doing the MXM tip touch. I always appreciate that. But we're gonna switch up today's format a little bit because we are a day late, but not a dollar short. Okay, they were really a day early, but we're gonna talk about Wrestle Dream. And the build going into that, I'm sure I won't be at all distracted by the ALDS, which is tied up right now. And we're gonna talk some news and notes, but then we will get into Dynamite. But let's first run down what we have as a Wrestle Dream card, and we can kind of Tarantino the rest of our review from there. We've got Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley, Mariah May versus Willow Nightingale, and Will Ospreay versus Ricochet. Kind of for the singles titles that are being defended on this card. The biggest one here is obviously Bryan Danielson versus Moxley. Danielson's full-time career on the line in Washington. Feels kind of like this is the move. Like it feels like Danielson wants to retire and give this title to Moxley. And I can't argue that that's like the perfect guy to transition it to, because every time they've needed Jon Moxley, he has put the company on his back. Him doing it with this character was so interesting. Them making Wheeler Yuta on the way out, I think, is super interesting. So let's kind of start there, and we'll go through the rest of the card. But Joe, how are you feeling about this world title? And how are you feeling about a world without Bryan Danielson wrestling in it full time again? It makes me sad.
I'll just fall back onto the years of when we didn't have Bryan Danielson wrestling at all. So, much like Ryan was conditioned to be a sports fan of a losing team, I'm conditioned to not
teams, plural
teams. I'm conditioned to, we're conditioned to not seeing Bryan wrestle for a long period of time, but we know he will periodically, so that's good. Looking forward to the match. I think it's the right call, like you said. Having the two guys being so familiar and having such respect between the two, it just kind of adds layers to the story. And plus, having this complex storyline built around it, I think it helps transition this title into future things more than just if it was Bryan picking out a guy that he wanted to wrestle his final match with. So,
Sure.
I really like the more complexity of this story.
Now, this is kind of like the blow is softened a little bit by the fact that this roster is stacked to the gills right now. Like, there are a lot of guys that kind of feel like top guys, which I think is a really healthy sign. Adam Page, I think Switchblade is going to feel very important with this feud. Swerve feels like a big deal. Moxley feels like a big deal. Ospreay feels like a big deal. Max is going to feel like a big deal when he comes back. So I think that kind of softens the Danielson exit, because I don't think they need him so much. I think he's just the best wrestler maybe to ever do it. So you kind of want him kicking around. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on that? And what do you think a Danielson part-time run looks like? Like, do you think it's going to be like him just calling a shot for dream matches? Do you think he'll just get in stories where he's wrestling less when he does come back? What do you think that looks like?
Well, I'm making my hands contemplative, as you do. The fingers are moving, but I think I'm with Joe. Most of there was a long period of time with no Bryan Danielson, so you clearly can adapt, and I agree with you. This is a stacked roster, so he's not the only piece, and he's not even the only amazing wrestler. And that's not a knock on him, but that's just they have what they need. I'm hoping for a more fun Brock Lesnar style run. Yes. So hold on. We'll just to cover this. I think a Brock Lesnar's fun has been like a one fun. It's been a healthy dose of fun. Occasionally you could hit the threes, but sure. I want a 4.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Fair.
You want Goldberg
where he
level?
Comes in. Say it again.
You want Goldberg level?
Yes, exactly. Where he comes in, he wrestles like 4 matches a year, and maybe 4 to 8, but they're all big. They're all against the best. Whoever's just killing it. Doesn't have to be the champion, just someone who's killing it. So that's what I'm hoping for. You see him like Not necessarily 4 matches, 4 pay-per-views. You see him on 4 pay-per-views a year, and really no other time in between.
I don't hate that idea because that gives you your big 4 with Bryan Danielson on them. I would be shocked if he didn't want to get into some of those more crossovery ones, though. Like, I feel like he would want to be involved in things like Forbidden Door, is my guess. But he also really genuinely is made out of graham crackers at this point. Like, this guy is falling apart. So we'll see what he looks like after neck surgery, too, like when he can come back. But I think we're all on the same page of what that match looks like. We do have Mariah May versus Willow Nightingale, which was shored up yesterday in a fun reworked plan that we're going to talk about for that women's picture. We have a Will Ospreay versus Ricochet and Takeshita, which also got set up a couple weeks ago. And I'm intrigued by both of these for different reasons. I think Mariah May definitely beats Willow, and I'm fine with that. Like, Willow kind of moving up into the world title picture seemed inevitable. She continues to be one of the most over baby faces in the world. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm wondering, is Mariah May's run going to last us until Toni Storm in Australia? Because I gotta say, like, I loved the story with Mariah. The follow-up has not been very good, in my opinion. Like, it feels like they've been building to Mina, but then Mina couldn't be here or something, so then they switched to Will. Like, it's felt very, very scattered. My only criticism of the story along the way is that they didn't really set up anything for Mariah. They didn't plant any seeds for future opponents in that run. So I think Mariah wins, but I'm like, does Toni Storm just win it back, and can Mariah May's reign last that long? And then in the international title picture, I think you gotta go with Takeshita. Otherwise, it's a waste putting him in this spot. You cannot keep running into the same ceilings that you do with guys like Daniel Garcia. I think that's a really bad way to go if you don't make him with this, because Will Ospreay and Ricochet are both, they could fight again. Will Ospreay can do anything. He feels like the world champ right now anyway in a lot of ways. So that's my thoughts on things. But we'll go to Ryan first for this. What are your thoughts on the women's title picture, and what do you think we get out of this international title match?
I can't believe it's still tied 2-2 at the end of the 6 in the ALDS. But yeah, Mariah May's follow-up hasn't been great. Part of that is they haven't really given her a feud. I mean, that's it's kind of the issue they have. It is the issue of champions that I've seen across wrestling. Very rarely there's been some really bad follow-ups on champions lately where it's like, but then the reigns are saved by 1 or 2 great ones. So we'll see. Willow could be an excellent one. I just don't think they built it properly, which kind of sucks. Willow is the biggest babyface they have in the company, and they're not building this right. When is Australia? I forget.
February, I believe.
Oi.
Aussie.
Oi. But I mean, that's a while, but not unrealistic. So yeah, I think she lasts to Australia. I think she beats Willow. She beats a couple other random contenders. Toni Storm makes her triumphant return. She dodges Toni Storm for a while. And then, she loses in Australia, because you have to have her lose in Australia. That would have been a nice long reign, and it would have been a fun little, like, you beat, everyone gets to win where they're from. For the international, not continental, intercontinental, not national title, yeah, it's got to be Takeshita. You said it right. Ospreay is so big, it doesn't matter what he's in. His feud's going to feel important. Ricochet can take the loss here because it's a triple threat, so no matter what happens, he doesn't look bad. It's too soon, I think. He doesn't need it either, being Ricochet coming from WWE. He eventually should have a title, but he doesn't need it right away. So yeah, it should be Takeshita, and it's a clean way to get it off Ospreay and beat Ricochet without either one looking weak. And you don't even have to make it dirty. It's not like he has to do a whole bunch. It's just triple threats are that way. So that, and I'm going to pull up a comment because I want Kate's opinion on a topic we just covered 2 seconds ago. Timothy Drake says he'd love an angle where Danielson loses the title, but because of the circumstances of the loss, he doesn't retire, or in order to get revenge and go out on his own terms. I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't hate that from a story perspective, but I think the real life perspective is this guy is absolutely beaten up. Like he probably shouldn't really be wrestling, realistically as of right now. And I think he's also the kind of guy that wouldn't want to play games with that a little bit. Like, I think he probably wants to say, like, if I'm retiring from my full-time career, I'm retiring from my full-time career. I don't hate it from a storyline angle, though. I don't. I think that could be something that's really fun because that was such a vicious turn. But I think realistically that guy needs to go off and get neck surgery for sure.
I also just think like they've been so hammering home this is only the retirement of his full-time career.
Yeah.
That like you can actually kind of do this angle and still have him go away, which is like he loses, there's something dirty to it. He has to go get surgery. He goes, gets a surgery, and when he's back, his first person is Mox again.
For
like,
sure, it could be Wheeler when he comes back. Like, I'm assuming Wheeler's going to have a nasty turn with things. So there's a lot of possibilities, but you also don't fuck around with neck surgery, right? We've learned that a lot over wrestling is like, we'll see where the product even is by the time we kind of get around to his return. But Joe, we talked some international title. We talked the women's title. We got to see Mercedes and Emmy on Dynamite. So that's not.
Did Joe talk about those things?
I was queuing him up for it.
For those two that we just passed?
Yes.
Oh, because you were already going to Mercedes. I was confused.
I was just rounding out the women's. I have never once missed a segue in my life.
You've never once skipped Joe. You're right.
No, or you. I'm literally perfect. So, but the women's title picture was something that didn't get rounded out on this card till very late, is what I was going to say if Ryan didn't interrupt me. So, but what are you thinking about this Mariah May and Willow program, as well as this triple threat that we have for the international title? I hate the way that match got set up, but I'm not mad about what got set up. That's for sure.
So the women's title picture, like we talked about already, it's nice to have Willow there because she is a person who is, right on that cusp of we should push her into that world title thing. She should be a world champion sooner rather than later. She's ready for it. I don't know what else she can do in that mid-card level. But not, like you said, not building a feud or a story with Mariah has been kind of weird. But then again, I can't see her without the belt right now, because if she didn't have the belt until Tony, I don't know what her character would be, because I feel like so much of her character is dependent on being the champion and being able to have that, air of hubris, and the way that she can talk and the way that she can do commentary is because that she's champion. Otherwise, great, you're a hot wrestler. We have a lot of them on the roster.
Sure.
So I feel like she has to keep the title until, I think February is when Lieutenant Florida said is when the Australian show is. So the international title, Ryan had me slipping up. Intercontinental Breakfast title. That
title rules. They have so many titles. The Intercontinental Breakfast title would be fantastic. I'm so
the winner gets a breakfast.
Yeah,
we have a little waffle station on the outside.
Sponsored by IHOP. Let's go.
The whole three-way match was a little trophy for me as far as doing the draw. I get that whole avenue of if Ricochet can take a loss, but I think we will probably end up getting some sort of Kyle Fletcher involvement based on everything that's been leading up to this, and whether or not he intends to cost Ospreay the match. I think he will, whether it's hitting him with a screwdriver or accidentally hitting Ricochet with a screwdriver. Someone's going to get screwed. So
someone is going to get screwed with a driver. That is for sure. A tiger driver, a screwdriver. We will see. We will see what happens there. But
A bad
That
Uber
is
driver. Oh, wait.
kind of the the top of the card there. We've got more to talk about here with the ROH World Championship match. That whole situation just makes me want to puke because I think Jericho might come out with the win. I think what is kind of getting interesting with what we saw with Daniel Garcia resigning is this TNT Championship picture. We're gonna have Jack Perry against Shibata. I think Jack Perry pretty obviously retains, but I think setting him up against Daniel Garcia for Full Gear is something that could be very fun. And then our tag team match, the Young Bucks versus Private Party. I just want them to hotshot it to Private Party at this point. I'm so over this this title reign from the Bucks and the disappearance of what was really fun about the characters. But I'm gonna go with Jericho. Sadly, I'm not happy about it. Jack Perry and the Young Bucks probably retaining, even though I want it to be Private Party. Joe, how are you feeling about our ROH World Championship, our TNT Championship, and our World Tag Team Championship pictures here?
I'm with you on the ROH prediction. Jericho will go from taking one title and turning it upside down to taking an even more legendary title and turning it upside down for the gimmick. The one thing that I have liked was drawing a more serious Mark Briscoe out a little bit. So we're not getting just the, insane, cut this rambling word of the day promo. We're getting a more focused and more violent Briscoe that we haven't seen in a while. So sure. I do like that part of this coming out of the feud. The TNT title, Bob's a good wrestler. He's not going to win the title. I don't know what to tell you. Apparently, he has a turkey leg in his tights from what Jack Perry said. Good on him. Good on him for that. And the tag team titles, you're right. It really has lost a lot of steam. I can't see the Bucks dropping the title if Okada wasn't going to drop the title because I feel like you still have to have all of them have gold at the same time.
Sure.
But yeah, it has run a little stale. I don't know if it's lost a direction in the whole Elite EVP storyline. I feel like they don't have a direction. They don't have a focus of who to go after right now. So, but I guess they still retain.
Yeah, I feel like the default is to retain because it just doesn't feel like Private Party has been set up to be the ones to win there. But I feels like the face side of that story really got plagued by injuries. Like Kenny's not back yet. Eddie's out. A lot of your heavy hitters are still not really involved in that angle, but it's just weird that they didn't defend for so long, but they also completely dropped the we're EVPs to avoid title shots piece of work with it. It's kind of disappointing because I really liked what they were doing, but it has just been dead in the tag team division as far as title stories go. But Ryan, where do you stand on these? What do you think we're getting from our ROH, our TNT, and our tag titles tomorrow? Say that 10 times fast.
Tomorrow. First of all, it's not tomorrow. It's Saturday.
Saturday.
Yes. So until Tony's press conference today, I had half believed it was going to be Jericho because I felt maybe they had some plans for ROH and once again putting him on someone like Jericho, the belts on someone like Jericho, but clearly they don't based on his press conference. I actually have Mark Briscoe winning. Then you have, for no other reason than it's flip a coin. So
sure,
I flipped and Briscoe won. Then you have Jack Perry versus Shibata. Shinada's not gonna win. It's Jack Perry. Shibata's too thrown in. It is one of those challenger of the week things, and it just sucks. Give me a story. Finally, I have I want Private Party to win, so I'm gonna go with them. They're hot. They've been heated up. Okay. Let them have the belt. It feels weird that they would be this heated up. Granted, they've done it with every other champion, but they had other teams they could have done this with. Other than the Private Party, that would have made more sense. So I had Private Party taking the belt and having a public party.
Yeah, I think after what we saw with Stokely, they're more set up to lose. Because that one was one I kind of felt could go either way, but I think they're gonna end up needing Stokely's help, which we'll talk about in the Dynamite portion of the review. But Hangman Page versus Jay White is one that interests me. I think that's going to be a longer feud. I think Jay White probably wins the comeback match. Darby Allin versus Brody King. I think you could flip a coin on that one. I'm going to say Darby wins because I think there's just a little bit something extra there where you can just let the face win. This feud doesn't really mean much. And then Swerve Strickland is returning. There's not a match set up, but I would be shocked if we don't get the debut of Bobby Lashley at the Wrestle Dream pay-per-view because it's in Swerve's backyard, right? So some good stuff there. Ryan, we'll kick it to you on those. What are you thinking with Hangman and Jay White, Darby and Brody, and Swerve returning?
You got to have Jay White win. Hangman can get angrier and more insane with a loss, and it works. He just had a huge win versus Swerve, so he's not desperate for one. I think if you want Jay White to be considered legitimate in this company, he needs to pull this victory off. So you have to have Jay White win. He can get destroyed after.
Sure.
But he needs to win. Darby's going to win. Even though it should be Brody King, Darby's going to win. They're clearly setting up Darby Moxley thingy after Danielson. And then Swerve comes to get destroyed by Bobby Lashley.
I'm intrigued to see what we get with that Bobby Lashley segment because there's been a lot. Well, we'll talk about it more with the vignette that we got on Dynamite. But Joe, how are you feeling about those three things, about Swerve's appearance, what that could mean, as well as both Jay White and Hangman and Brody and Darby?
I'm with you. I think Jay White wins because, it's time to, again, reheat his singles run up a little bit since I don't feel like we've ever gotten a proper singles run with him. So coming back and getting a win over Heyman would be huge after Heyman is coming off a Swerve win. So I'm with you guys on Jay White. Darby, I guess he'll win because he's in his home state, even though this match feels like we've seen it countless of times. And Brody has a weird fetish of wanting to choke Darby, and it's just been, I don't know, I just feel like I've seen this a lot. So it just felt like Darby needed something to do at Wrestle Dream.
Yeah, this felt like, hey, you're from this place, and you're gonna get a pop. So I'm with you there. You might as well give him the win since this is a completely nominal match anyway.
I mean, the Swerve thing, I think we get the old, one more proposition from MVP to try to win over Swerve, and Swerve denies the hand, and then Bobby comes and destroys him.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun to be had there, especially because we're still feeling the effects of that all-out match, right? So I think a ton of fun to be had. Or what?
Unless Swerve comes out in a very nice-looking suit.
It's extremely possible.
I could see Swerve coming out in a very nice-looking suit and still slapping away MVP's hand.
I like that idea because more cool-looking suits should be on television. And also, he shouldn't join the Hurt Syndicate. I don't think they need that. But some good stuff. Another loaded card. I have no idea why Mark Briscoe and Jericho was on the proper card and not the 0 hour. Definitely does not feel like an Inoki tribute show this year. I'll say that much. This is just an intermittent AEW pay-per-view. This does not have the fighting spirit stuff at all. Not really any New Japan crossover here. So we will see. But that is the Wrestle Dream card. We're going to talk a little bit more about how we got to all of that very shortly after our commercial break. But before we go to our commercial break, we do want to let you know that there are so many ways that you can support us here, okay? You can leave a thumbs up. That's a fun, free way to do it. You can participate in the chat. We see you over there. We got Big G around. Matthew Hooks is in the chat as well, joining in here. You can leave us a 5-star review. But you can also support us by buying a Mark Order t-shirt. So you've got 4 beautiful designs there. The 2 on the right are front and back for you. You can hang out. You can buy some shirts. We'll refresh the designs soon at some point here. Maybe going into the holidays because there's going to be more sales. But we do have these t-shirts available on Pro Wrestling Tees for you. Just our logos for now, but let us know if there's any designs that you want to see. Do you want Ryan's fun scale faces on a shirt? Because I do. I might just custom make that for me. Because they're insane, especially face number 3, I think it is. But yeah, for now, we have these designs up. We'll maybe refresh them and swap them out. But headed into the holidays, what better gift to give your loved ones than a Mark Order t-shirt? Even if they don't listen to us, it's just a cool looking logo. So order 1, order all 4, beat shipping charges by picking up a Mark Order podcast shirt onto your favorite wrestling superstar or wrestlers shirts that are available there for you. Add us to your cart if you're able to. We appreciate it. But we are going to tell you about some of the other fantastic shows on the Shining Wizards network here. I was on Monday's show for Kate's Corner. We talked about Bad Blood. They had a Ricky Shane Page interview. They have a Jimmy Jacobs interview, I think, coming up. So some good stuff there at the Shining Wizards proper, but plenty of other shows that you can check out here on the Shining Wizards network as well.
We'd like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in every Monday night to listen to the Shining Wizards. If you'd like to continue to support us outside of listening, we've got a few ways for you to do that. If you shop at Amazon, go over to amazon.shiningwizards.com, do your shopping as usual, and when you make your purchase, a little bit of that purchase price will go back to support the show. If you like to wear t-shirts, merch.shiningwizards.com will take you to our Pro Wrestling Tees store, where we've got over a dozen great designs from over 11 years of professional wrestling podcasting. You can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/wizardspodcast, where each and every week we call out your name as one of our show producers, and the more you support us, the more things that you're entitled to receive, and believe me, they are fantastic. If you can't support us monetarily, if you don't shop at Amazon, that's absolutely fine. Continue to listen to us wherever you listen to us on the World Wide Web, and make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Doesn't cost you anything, helps us out, and we can continue to bring you the love fest that is the Shining Wizards.
What's up, folks? It's your boy, the Impact Player, Mr. Philly Ray, inviting all of you to check out the Turnbuckle Throwbacks Wrestling Podcast. Join us as we cover all things current in the world of pro wrestling, as well as paying homage to the old school, the Squared Circle. So listen in and find out why we are the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment broadcasting. Find us on all social media platforms and anywhere you get your podcast from. And as always, we are the proudest members of the Shining Wizards Network and Rant Entertainment Media.
Are you tired of being lied to every day by the mainstream media?
Do you want to know what's really going on in the world?
Do you want to make up your own mind about things and not be told what to think or say?
Then listen to Inconclusive Breakdown, a weekly anti-PC look at the world of entertainment and current events, brought to you without censorship or filters.
You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts, BitChute, and on ShiningWizardsNetwork.com.
And also, we're a proud member of the Shining Wizards Network.
Got 30 minutes to kill?
Come check out 30 Screams or Less, where we review a horror movie in 30 minutes or less. We cover new movies and old ones too.
We'll give our honest thoughts on the movie, good or shit, as well as a rating of each one that we watch.
New episodes weekly, available on the Shining Wizards Network and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Corey.
Come check us out at 30 Screams or Less.
G'day guys, my name is Thomas, one half of the Broadcast Podcast. With our podcast, we go back and watch wrestling events from WWE, WWF, WCW, ECW, AEW, and many other wrestling promotions. You can check us out on Twitter at The Broadcast, that's TheBrokast, and you can also download all episodes on Apple Podcasts, Castbox, Castro, and many other podcast apps.
If you like your music heavy, then check out Radioactive Metal on the Shining Wizards Network. For over 16 years now, Radioactive Metal has been one of the longest running podcasts. Over the years, we've interviewed some legendary metal acts, had some awesome discussions, and cranked a hell of a lot of tunes. So join your cool Uncle Snowy and his co-host Aaron for the audio mosh pit that is radioactive metal here on the Shining Wizards Network.
Well, the action is underway.
What's up, everyone? When on the Shining Wizards Network, be sure to check out Wrestling Night in Canada. If we're not recording another kick-ass podcast,
Or playing in punk bands.
Or recording kick-ass heavy metal albums.
then we're sitting back, we're grabbing a couple brews, and going over everything to do in the world of pro wrestling.
Because we're from Winnipeg, you idiots.
The Mark Order Podcast is the only show you need if you're looking for dedicated coverage of everything AEW on the Shining Wizards Network. Join us live on YouTube every Wednesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern after Dynamite to chat along with the show. If you can't join us live, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all social channels at MarkOrderPod and use the hashtag #JoinTheMarkOrder, because if you don't find us,
we will find you.
I'm Kevin Rowe.
I'm Al Day.
And we're a couple of down under pounders that co-host Rogue Day Dots, an action figure collecting podcast where we talk about, well, just about anything that tickles our fancy at any given moment.
We're grumpy old men, and sometimes people get on our nerves. And when you get on our nerves, guess what? You get off the lawn.
Get off my lawn, asshole! We also go on a little bit of a mission. We go back and we're grading every wrestling figure line that's out there. I'm talking LJNs. I'm talking Jacks. I'm talking Hasbros. Who doesn't like a little Hulkaplex? It's a Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production found on the Shining Wizards Network.
I'm Duke Bags.
Kevin Rowe.
And together we are the co-hosts of Your Duke and Road. If you want to hear about some terrible wrestling shows, we got you covered.
Well, we talk about good ones, too.
We're currently talking about the death of WCW.
I know what we're fucking talking about. Sometimes we get guest spots, like from the Taskmaster. I like to listen to the Year of Duke and Rope podcast. They're funny guys. I like when they talk about the Nards plows. I like Nards plows. That's a good move. And I like the Dungeon of Doom. You know, sometimes I call my butt the Dungeon of Doom. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Let me tell you a little bit about my favorite wrestling podcast. All right. It's a podcast from two men, Duke Bags, Kevin Rowe. They talk about professional wrestling. It's a man's sport. All right? And who better to talk about a man's sport than Duke? Oklahoma.
And once in a while, Vince Russo stops by.
Oh, you piece of shit! If you're not listening to the Year Duke and Rope podcast in the back with the boys, you piece of shit, I don't know what you're doing. It's, you gotta slide one in there. If you're a man, you're talking about something only a man can do. You're talking about sliding one in there. Bro, take the time to slide one in there. All right, bro, you piece of shit. Slide one in there. A Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production that you can find on the Shining Wizards Network.
We are back after our rousing commercial break. We thank you guys for sticking with us. We thank you for joining us the day after Dynamite here. So much to talk about with this episode of Dynamite. The ratings, not pretty on this one. It did go up against NXT, which definitely won out. I think a lot of people between the hurricane and stuff as well were probably catching this on their DVR. It was a different time slot, which I think backfired. A different day, which never helps. So I don't think there's anything to be like concerned about unless it's a recurring pattern, but just a little bit of a weird one, and also a ton switched around. I know that my boss is going to try and get some details about what specifically, but of course the events in both North Carolina, Florida, and other affected areas with Hurricane Helene, followed up by Milton here, are causing a lot of travel issues for people. So I actually thought they pulled together a really good episode of Dynamite considering the circumstances. I thought they really made some impressive last minute substitutions that we know of, right? There's stuff that we don't know about yet, but we definitely know what happened with that women's picture. I thought that ruled. So a lot of moving parts when it comes to pro wrestling under regular circumstances. Add natural disasters in there, not the wrestler. You've got a lot going on, but kind of overall, what did you guys think? I'll let you guys jump in however you feel like it.
What, Ryan?
I mean, I was excited until I saw how low the ratings were, and then I was just like, "Fuck this." That's really what determines whether or not a show is good. Is if the ratings are good. Yeah, ignore different night, different time, competition through multiple things. Ignore all that. It's just the ratings. But no, I mean, considering we have no idea what it was supposed to be, what it turned out to be was real fun. I actually really enjoyed it. Obviously, I imagine that the hurricanes are screwing up a lot of things, and obviously, most importantly, people's lives. You feel bad for, you have Cash from FTR posting and trying to raise money. You have all it's just terrible. So I don't want to put it solely in a business perspective, but in truth, it is screwing up a lot of things. You know how many people. Florida is a hotbed for where a lot of wrestlers live. And AEW is a lot in the South in general. So even if they weren't directly affected, there's a lot of indirect stuff that they had to deal with. But yeah, overall, I thought it was quite good. Joe?
Yeah, I thought this was a fun episode. And Joe, this was 379,000 was the average viewership for this, which is very, very low for them. I can say with full transparency that ad execs do not care when it is a one-time instance. My boss checks in on abnormally low and abnormally high ratings things, and the general network response is cool or yeah, that stunk. They don't give a shit unless it's a recurring pattern. So whatever hype you're seeing online about either company or whatever, not a lot to worry about there. But I was impressed by this episode considering the circumstances. What did you think?
Yeah, I think with, like you said, the circumstances, I understand everything. Maybe that's caused the one issue I had with this episode, which is the 10 plus talking segments.
Yeah.
Which I feel really messed up my flow of watching it. And just had a couple back-to-back talking segments, then maybe a match, then about 2 or 3 backstage segments, and then it's just a lot of talking. And again, if it's because of booking and travel and other issues, I get that. But that was my only real gripe. I thought everything else was fine. I thought the in-ring action was great. The women's 4-way match was a good consolation out of a bad situation, especially with the people who were in it. So
agreed.
I had no problem with that.
Yeah, and I knew it was being affected when they started to set up things that had nothing to do with the pay-per-view. I was like, okay, so they just fast-forwarded some creative to be on this show because they had access to that talent. This didn't feel like a go-home show for a lot of it, and you can kind of put the pieces together as to why, right? So, but to your point, there were a ton of talking segments, and as someone with ADD, I did not appreciate that we had 4 of them to start off the show within 10 minutes. That was a lot, but I will say, I felt like they were all pretty damn good. We start with this Jon Moxley promo, who is killing this character, I feel like, and he doesn't strike me usually as a guy that would... He's not like a flowery dude, right? He doesn't deliver stuff with flowery language or talk obtusely at all. Usually he's just an I'm gonna kick your ass guy, but this has been a really nice blend of I'm gonna kick your ass guy combined with, I keep hinting at this overarching thing, but I loved what we got. This was quick, short, and sweet, but he basically says that when Bryan Danielson steps into the ring, there's nobody better than the American Dragon, but he's never made peace with the dark side of himself in the way that Jon Moxley kind of has here. and that there are not enough people in the state of Washington to stop him. And he hopes that one day Brian understands that it has to be this way. The stakes are too high. And he slaps a chair onto the floor. So there's still this alluding to this higher power of some sort here. And then Bryan Danielson retorts saying what he says best, which is that John's going to get his fucking head kicked in at Wrestle Dream, but also talks about how Yuta and Claudio have supported him in every company that he's been at, especially with Claudio. But that is not the case anymore. So some really, really good stuff to kick us off there. These were very quick. I'm so sick of their big audio issues on AEW, which there were for Danielson's. Like, figure it out. It cannot be this hard. But Joe, we'll start with you on this. What did you think of Moxley and then Danielson's retort?
I do like the different places that Moxley can go with promos. Like I said, he's a very less is more type of speaker. And to see him go from cutting promos with a house plant to where we're at today with him.
That plant had a name. Okay, that was Mitch.
To him kind of kind of like cryptic, very like aggressive promos. It fits his character, his personality. I really like it. And more than anything, I love how they just kind of bookend these shows with you get the Mox part early in the beginning to set up the show. You have Mox at the end of the show. It's just, I like the wraparound of, it's just a nice little bow on the show.
They did bookend it. I do have some kind of overarching things with AEW, which is that literally everything is set up by pull-apart brawls and saves in the ring and backstages. Like, they need to freshen up how they set stuff up. But bookending the show with this was nice. Ryan, what were your thoughts on this?
First of all, Joe, more is more, not less. Just need to help you with that math there.
I'll let you know that more Giancarlo Stanton is what's up, because Yankees went up 3-2 last I checked on a solo shot by him. So
I hope it's 4-3 now. Nope, still 3-2, bottom of the 8th. So they're really playing. It was great to bookend. I'm really into the story. Clearly, this is the hottest thing they have going right now. They're playing a dangerous game, which is they're hyping up this, hyping without hyping, but it still counts. Where they're hyping up this mysterious better thing, this cause.
Sure.
Have you? That's a dangerous game, because if you can't deliver, it's bad. Like it turns people off majorly. So like they got to be very careful that they have something worth delivering at the end of it.
How do you guys feel if it's Shane McMahon?
I like it personally. I think one that's of the level that it's worth it, because his last name is McMahon and he's in a different company. Like that alone,
sure,
is whatever. And Shane McMahon as a character never bothered me. Like he got played out, and that's a whole different issue. Like the stories they were telling with him got played out. But overall, just use him as a character. What do I care? Like, the one thing that would annoy me is if they treat him like he's a wrestler on the level of Bryan Danielson. Like that's where I got annoyed in WWE. But if you treat him as like not quite a wimp, like he's a guy who's willing to fight because he has enough matches in his history that you could say like he's willing to go for it. But realistically, he's just an evil mastermind. If you treat him as that, as a character, that's wonderful.
Now, I think there's something really fun with the possibility of him being the face of Shockwave if they land on Fox, because you're identifying somebody immediately that people will resonate with on a brand new show. If you're going to grab like those habit SmackDown viewers, say they stay in that same time slot, having Shane McMahon's face there as the guy running stuff for the people that recognize like that era of wrestling, understanding what it means for Shane to be on the show, understanding what happened last time he was not a part of a WWE product but was around wrestling. Like, I think there's some really, really fun things that are a possibility there. Also, shout out to more people filtering in the chat. We see you, Scott George. We see you, Pieces. Thank you so much. But Joe, how do you feel about the possibility of Shane McMahon? And if not Shane, who else?
They would have to really, I feel like, change Shane's character a little bit more for me, because we haven't seen a character of Shane that would match what Moxley and them are doing. I haven't. I mean, you've seen him be the undercutter who bought WCW in a storyline from under his dad's nose, right? So that's the most like cutthroat thing I remember seeing him doing as far as taking over something. Otherwise, I don't know how he fits with this.
Sure.
It'd be interesting. I know initially everyone kept speculating him with, the Elite, and I thought that made a lot more sense in my head. I feel like whoever it is, if there's an overarching person controlling things, they have to be a little bit more sick in the head, more so than Moxley. If Moxley is kind of going along with and kind of doing the bidding of someone else, I feel like they really have to like be ranked up to 11.
They have to match his freak, is what you're saying.
And yes, and in a more prolific way. Yeah.
I respect it. Well, that is our opener. This story continues
hold on, Kate.
to
Two
intrigue.
things. Whenever I hear the term undercutter, all I can think of is Tom Green and his show and Undercutter's Pizza, literally. And I will say in the chat, I think it was Scott put out there Josh Barnett as someone on a practical level, that would be great. That won't hit with a larger audience, which is what I think they're aiming for here. I think they're looking for that big swing.
Yeah, I also think there's a little bit too much WWE crossover between Bloodsport and WWE right now that they'll probably go that route. There are also people that don't love Josh Barnett's style. There are a lot of people that feel like it is very, very shooty, and depending on how much he would be involved in the program, there are going to be wrestlers who would refuse to work the way that he wants to work, meaning that if it was like Shockwave was a Josh Barnett promotion, that would be an issue. But we'll see. It's definitely continuing to intrigue me in the right way, I would say. But we move on to this Darby Allin and Brody King face-to-face. And I gotta say, I've really liked what we've been getting from Darby Allin a little bit soon, of more recent iteration of him. Like, I like that he's not under the wing of Sting anymore, to be honest. Like, it feels like he stepped out into his own. We've gotten away, as Matt from the Shining Wizards used to call him, Darby Avant-Garde. We've gotten to a much more sincere version of him. And I think he's grown so much promo-wise. You used to hear him in his delivery constantly catching his breath. I think he's figured out his pacing and his volume a lot better on how to deliver. But he basically says that he likes Brody King. He advocated for Brody King to get a job when ROH shut down before Tony Khan bought it. But that instead of just being grateful for what AEW gave him and being able to retire his dad and buy his own house, he's been coming for Darby Allin's spot as a face of the company. And Brody King kind of just flips it around really easily and says, cool, yeah, so when you climb Everest and die, who's going to be the face of the company then? Which I think was a nice microcosm of basically saying, like, you're doing all this dangerous shit. How do we know you're going to survive through it? And Darby basically says, put me out of my misery now. He does do something that's not very face-ish, and he has a rock with him, but I don't mind it when it's someone like Brody King, because Darby is 12 pounds, and Brody King is enormous. So it would have been better if it was like a self-defense rock. It didn't bug me that much, but I just like what we're getting out of Darby Allin recently. And Ryan, I feel like we've seen this match a couple of times. This feels just thrown on for the local pop. How do you feel about this being thrown together and thrown on there, especially when we have like 11 matches on this card? Like, should we be saving this stuff for TV and just skipping it on cards?
This feels like a 0-hour match to me personally. I get you want to have him around based on the location. You know, that's the nice, because Darby's from Washington, right?
Yes, he is.
So it's a nice pop, but I don't think I don't think it just doesn't belong on the main card. It feels very much like a 0 hour match to me.
Sure.
It could have belonged on the main card had they built this a couple weeks ago. And maybe because Brody and Darby have a history and it's a fun history. So had they built this a couple weeks ago with some attacks and whatnot, you might have had something, but to now it just feels like, okay, it's thrown together.
I agree, and I think that's part of the cycle that they're trapped in right now is they had All In, All Out, Grand Slam, and this in a very, very dense period of time. Now, they do have an enormous roster, and I think it could be rotated a little bit better to avoid things like this, but I think 0 hour would have been an appropriate place for this, and I feel like 0 hour for the ROH World title match would have also been okay. I feel like that is changing hands now that that is on the main card, which makes me want to vomit. So, but we will move on from that. We get a backstage with Renee Paquette. We're going to talk about how this comes into play or doesn't come into play weirdly later, but Lance Archer and Jake Roberts have made a trade with the Don Callis family here, and Lance Archer is now a part of the Callis family. Why he doesn't come out for the Mega Callis family segment later, I don't know, but here we are. This, I think is cool, and my bigger thing is I think it's cool that managers can trade talent. They should keep that as a thing because they have a lot of successful managers on AEW right now. And I think it would make storylines more intriguing, and I think it is a good way to keep talent fresh without having like a hard roster split. I think that's just a cool idea, so... Ryan, I'll ping pong it back to you and then we'll get Joe's thoughts on this. Lance Archer with the Callis family. What do you think about that? I think the other side got the better part of the trade personally. No offense to Lance Archer. But, and how do you feel about managers being able to make trades here?
So I love managers making trades. And I love that this feels at least like they want to do something with Lance Archer. And they realized in order to do that, not a knock on Jake the Snake by any means. It was just a fresh change of character to pull him from Jake the Snake.
Big time.
Like, that's all it really was. It's not like saying like Jake's not good. But Jake doesn't really fit with what he traded for. LFI doesn't feel like it needs him, I guess. Like, Roosh can talk. You have three... They have their own thing going. He just seems very out of place. Now, I'm willing to let it play itself out because it's Jake the Snake and he's one of the best talkers in the history of wrestling, but it doesn't make sense. That being said, managers making trades is great because it's an instant spicing up with not having to go through a long, drawn out, like, betrayal, a stereotypical story. You can just, again, Lance Archer's got a whole new world of possibilities because he's with Don Callis. Even if you hate Don Callis, you have to acknowledge that this puts Lance Archer on a different, pedestal. So
I agree. I think it's a really refreshing approach to switching up creative a little bit. And I think Jake the Snake, with the talent that he got traded, is a big leg up. I'm wondering if he's going to be more the guy playing chess and these guys are just his murderer's row. I think that's how that relationship could work. But Joe, what did you think of this and how are you feeling about managers making trades in AEW?
I think it makes a lot of sense for the ranchers to be able to trade their clients. I think if they're in any other sport, you're making trades. So why not professional wrestling? I felt like Jake definitely got the better end of the deal. I mean, you get 3 younger guys, for the price of one.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And killers, like just a bunch of killers.
Yeah. Lance Archer's great, but it's just purely a numbers game. And I'm wondering with Callis incorporating Lance now, like, does that say that Hobbs is that far away from returning since he brings in a heavy?
That's interesting because Fightful's Select reported a couple weeks ago that Hobbs was ready to come back. That got confirmed by Wrestling Observer as well. So it seems like his return is imminent. A lot of people are just, I think, assuming that he goes the way of the Hurt Syndicate or somewhere else. I'm just glad that they have Lance Archer, A, on some sort of creative path that isn't a title adjacent loss, and B, to your point, like, I kind of feel like with Hobbs, they should just start fresh. Like, the whole Callis family has fallen apart while he's gone. If there's not really anything for him to come back to, I'm kind of okay with that being a loose end that they don't touch. There are loose ends I would like for them to tie up that we are going to talk about in a little bit, for sure. But let's dig in to what we've got here. We've got Hologram debuting on Dynamite for the first time against Commander, a huge standout on Collision. Very cool welcome to this roster. If you like flippy-do stuff, this is for you. This match was sloppy and stupid in places. It was athletically phenomenal in other places. That's just what I've kind of come to expect from Lucha presentation on American television. I am learning more and more about the depth of what a Lucha style necessarily means. But there was a really cool counter to a powerbomb in here that I thought was really neat. But you have the airplane spin setting up the win for Hologram. But as we were kind of alluding to here, post-match, we get a little bit of an attack with this. We get Rush Dralistico and Beast Mortos under the wing of Jake Roberts now, coming back out to attack both Hologram and Commander, putting everybody on notice here. But yeah, Jake emerging as the winner. Joe, how did you feel about the match and the post-match angle? We were kind of sniffing around, but how do you feel like it was executed here on the show?
I thought it actually was fine for what you said, what you come to expect out of these matches, especially when it's Hologram and Commander both going one-on-one. It wasn't necessarily all for me because it was a little too much standing around and waiting for spots and timing. I did like the fact that they started the match very mat-based. A lot of, grounding before you went flying and did all the other things. I would kind of like the storyline eventually with Hologram instead of just having him be like a really cool presentation who does lucha.
Yeah.
It'd be great if you have a little bit more investment in him now that he's been introduced to the crowd. So, like, give me something more besides that. But yeah, otherwise, it was what it was for me.
Yeah, that's kind of a persistent complaint I've had is you have all of these wonderful luchadors and they haven't really been involved in stories and there hasn't really been character direction for them. You seem to have guys teed up now with Hologram, with Beast Mortos, with Rush finally. So I'm hoping that changes because they have some incredible Hispanic wrestlers on the show and they are not necessarily involved in storylines all that much. So, oh my God, Aaron Judge not striking out, but walking, I think. We'll take it. Ryan. Oh, I'm sorry. It's 3-2. I should have known better. How did you feel about this Aaron Judge at bat? But also, how do you feel about this match and what we get after the match, of course?
I mean, Judge is a weird player. He's definitely he reminds me of Ryan Howard, the Phillies back in the day, where like he'll hit those bombs, but you're going to get a lot of strikeouts in between. But you got to value whether the bombs are worth the strikeouts. But that's baseball, baby. That's especially, what is it? Sabermetrics.
Biz.
Now, Joe's saying this wasn't all for him, and words can't say it, and I can't too, enough to prove that it's all for you. But, yeah, Joe, you said it and it gets in my head. I had, if I'm being honest, there was some sloppiness in this match, which made it a lot of fun.
Sure.
But that is what a lucha match is for the most part. That's why when you have one that doesn't have it, it's like one of the classics because the style they wrestle is so tough to be flawless. It's oftentimes why I like when lucha wrestlers wrestle not maybe not quite techers, but like someone in the middle because
somebody that can base like really well. Yeah.
And there's a balance there. They're both not going for a high flying move at the same time. But it was good. But the ending of this is what I mean. You have Rush, Dralistico, and Beast Mortis all standing there, and you have Jake at the top, and it's just like, Roosh is the leader, man.
Sure.
They don't need it. Like,
that's why I'm wondering if he's gonna not be a mouthpiece as much as a chess player, of like just carving out the lanes to advance the talent, rather than being like a mouthpiece manager. Because I don't even know if he has the health stamina for that. To be perfectly
I'd like to see him be the guy who just like points out, attack this guy, or do this, so you can have this opportunity down the line, or help him get a trio championship, or kind of like, hey, I went and got this match for you. Be that guy advocate instead of necessarily a mouthpiece.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too, for sure. For sure. Well, bad news and good news. We have Chris Jericho getting responded to by Mark Briscoe here. And Mark actually, I think, did a great job. To Joe's point earlier, he gives the more serious approach to, like, you said my brother's name, and now it's not about the ROH title, it's about hurting you kind of thing. And then we get the return of Daniel Garcia, which is hinted to earlier in the night. Daniel Garcia ran into Renee in the parking lot and says that he'll address his future and the fans later in the show. That comes up about now. He toys with our emotions for a little bit, but ultimately says that he resigns. He says that AEW is where the best wrestle, and he's one of the best. And he says that he's not here to get little broed by the locker room or cry when things go wrong anymore. He's coming for gold, which I really, really liked. And we're going to talk about what kind of gets hinted at in a little bit, but some really, really good news. He's a guy that feels like, quote unquote, the feeling. And he says that at the end here, right? The feeling is restored or whatever. But he feels as important as a part of the foundation as anybody else, anybody that's been called a pillar or anything like that. And from a brand and wrestler matchup perspective, I feel like stylistically AEW is the perfect home for that guy. So I was glad to see him resign for those reasons. Ryan, we'll start with you. How did you feel about the Mark Briscoe response piece of this, and then also Daniel Garcia resigning and the promo that he did it with?
Mark Briscoe's response was good. Joe nailed it earlier, and I think bringing in the Jay thing, while it doesn't seem to have any place, I think it's their attempt to make Mark serious a little bit. It was a rough and not perfect attempt, but he had been hitting so hard as that silly guy that Kyle reacted to that they had to do something to ground him a little bit. And we'll see how the learning tree does, because you're always learning under the tree. So then, Daniel Garcia. I mean, I'm glad he resigned. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. That was one of the people I was like, oh man, I hope he doesn't go elsewhere. And again, I don't have a side in this. Like, if he goes to WWE, I still get to see him wrestle. It's not like for me, I lose that. I just really like where I think they're going with him in the company, and his style fits so well into it that I'm like, stay. So I'm glad he stayed. And he's got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night.
I feel like every episode is like, listening to Ryan sing is listening to Now. That's what I call music volume 4. It's just a mixed playlist of every radio hit from 1999.
It really does have a very specific moment in time for the most part.
Ryan stopped listening to music pretty early on.
It's upsetting. SJ joining us in the chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on this Wednesday evening, SJ. But Joe, I would love your thoughts on Mark Briscoe's quick response that we get in this, and also Danny Garcia re-signing. But let's also talk about what gets hinted at for him, because that comes up shortly after this. You do have Shibata running into him backstage. You've got Shibata and Jack Perry set up, and Shibata saying he's going to have that gold around his waist, and him running into Daniel Garcia makes me think not so much Shibata is going to be the one to take it off Jack Perry, but Danny Garcia, like the perfect handoff there. Give me your thoughts on all that.
The Briscoe promo was fine. It was short, sweet, to the point. Kind of like I said earlier, love the intensity of Mark. Garcia, I feel like it was. I'm glad he's staying with AEW. I feel like his style, his where he's at right now, fits what AEW is trying to do going forward. I made a mental note of, we talked about the pillars in the first 5 years and who those young talents were, but like now as we hit the next 5 years, I feel like he's moved himself into being, one of those quote unquote pillars when you look at young talent. Because, and I feel like him, if he's able to take the belt off of, Jack Perry, who was one of the initial pillars, I think that'd be a nice, torch handing, a torch going from one person to another and building another young person up. And, I'm happy to see it. And I'm looking forward to him, getting his single title like that. And I've been really impressed with, his growth on the mic, especially in this promo, how he delivers and how he can make it feel real and passionate. So, yeah, lots of good things ahead.
I agree. I had also thrown out there, I wouldn't hate seeing him win the Continental Classic instead. Like, he has that trajectory where his character is kind of transforming through almost losing out. Winning the tournament a year later would be like the ultimate character arc for that. But Ryan, how do you feel about what got hinted at in this episode with Daniel Garcia possibly facing Jack Perry at Full Gear?
I mean, I think that's the more fun matchup. I love Shibata, but they didn't build it. So, like, what are you doing there? So Garcia is the fun matchup, and there's some history that they've had, and Joe makes a good point about new pillar taking from old pillar. I was more just focused on all the wrestlers hanging out in the back like that, just chilling, having a good time.
Just hangs out, I guess. Like that
Colt
guy
Cabana,
is
you had Anna Jay. Yeah, like there's just a wide collection, just chilling like a villain.
Chilling here to hug Danny Garcia for resigning. So some good stuff, some very good news for AEW being able to keep him around for, I'm assuming, whether it's going to be a nice long time, which is good. Not a coincidence that it comes on the heels of the Warner deal. I feel like they secured the bag and then they're able to spend a little bit more probably on talent. Those things did seem to happen boom boom to each other. So we move on to see what Swerve Strickland has been doing since All Out, and we revisit MVP's debut, and we see Strickland working out with EJ and Duca, and it's announced that Strickland will have the segment that we talked about already at Wrestle Dream, and we immediately cut to MVP and Shelton Benjamin watching on screen, not like how wrestlers are supposed to watch TV, but whatever. EJ's an interesting one because I'll say this much. I've heard his name floated as alliances on both sides of the coin of this story. I think EJ and Duca as a absolute badass in the Hurt Syndicate could be something that's very, very fun. But Ryan, we'll start with you. What did you think of what we got out of this, and where do you want to see EJ and Duca end up?
I'm focusing on the second. You got me stumped on the second. I mean, this was fine. You kind of nailed it, but I'm focusing on the EJ because I think he makes more sense in the Hurt Syndicate, maybe, because I think they'll want a tag partner for Shelton at some point.
Sure.
And not that Shelton needs one, but I just think it's hard to have multiple solo stars. It's easier to have a tag team and then but he also would be great backup for Swerve. Like, if you're saying that that's where he's going, it's one of those two. He's so big, so like he's muscle. I mean, I hate to say it like that. That's what it is. So
a huge dude physically. Like he's a really tall, really jacked guy. I will say that I heard not from Sean or anybody at Fightful, but I did hear that this was one of the segments that got affected by the weather, that this was something that had gotten switched around between last week's and this week's tapings. So I'm intrigued to see how it shakes out, but I think maybe what happens at Wrestle Dream was planned for earlier on, so we'll see how that goes. But Joe, what are you thinking here about EJ and Duca in this segment?
I think I feel like you need to give Swerve some backup. I feel like it's been a while since Swerve has had his own group of people around him, and I think it's cost him lately. Especially, he was at his most vicious when he had a group with him that he could feed off of.
Sure.
And if you have to go into the Hurt Syndicate can recruit others, I think, already in AEW who could use a little push and be in the spotlight with that faction. So
Sure.
I feel like, Swerve having EJ and maybe one other person would help. But that's kind of where I'm hoping that goes.
Most importantly, Joe, do you think that's EJ and Duca Swerve's when he drives?
If he's going to be with Swerve, I think that's rule number 1.
It's a compulsory.
Yeah, I think you have to. It's a prerequisite.
Yeah, well, they're hopped up on all that coffee.
And then you were talking about the MVP and Shelton watching the monitor incorrectly. I would have loved to see them arrive there for that segment and stand like that, and then someone had to correct them and be like, "No, we actually need you to stand this way." and look at the monitor like you would at home.
That's how we do things here at AEW. But some good developments there. I'm intrigued to see how that shakes out as well. I think that could be very fun.
Yeah, the Yankees won.
Yes, they did. And let me tell you, I think they're a shoo-in for the World Series if they are struggling this hard against the Royals. Let me tell you, I feel very confident that we're eking out wins against the fucking Royals. Oh my gosh, how am I supposed to buy that we're gonna last longer into the playoffs? But I'll take it. I'll take tomorrow being an elimination game.
Oh, by the way, apparently Nana coffee is very good per SJ.
I've heard very good things about the Prince Nana coffee. I've heard only good things about anything related to Prince Nana, to be honest. So some good movement there. But we move on to the women's picture for the evening. We get some really good development, I feel like, in both kind of pockets of where we're headed, both with Mercedes and with Mariah May. I just hate that it got set up so late, but it's good that these are finally sneaking onto the card, I guess. Originally, this was supposed to be Britt Baker and Willow Nightingale, but Britt Baker came down with an illness. I'm told that was not a cover for anything weather-related. She is actually sick, which is unfortunate. Tony Khan, I think, also confirmed that on the call, but instead, they set up something that I thought was very well justified in a 4-pack with Saraya, Nyla Rose, and Jamie Hayter. All former champions, all make sense in this spot. And some really good things come out of this match, including the return of Penelope Ford, who is making an attack on Jamie Hayter. Doesn't feel like she necessarily has joined the Outcasts here. We do see Harley taking some shots at Jamie Hayter as well, but Penelope looked like she was coming out there for herself, not to necessarily make a save on Saraya. However, we do know she is a bad girl, so she could join the Outcasts here. Did I say the Hurt Syndicate before? Or did I say the Outcasts? I clearly meant the Outcasts.
You said Outcasts.
Okay, cool. I was like, did I say Hurt Syndicate? Because I was just talking about it. Clearly, I mean the Outcasts. But great to see Penelope Ford back. We're seeing some of the injured women starting to return as well. Yuka Sakazaki, Penelope Ford. There's more on the way, I've been told. We're seeing that on the men's side as well, obviously, with the return of Jay White and so forth. So some nice injection to the roster, not just coming from signings, but also returns from injury. And Willow Nightingale wins, which I believe was the plan all along anyway, but she wins with some force in this. I absolutely love what we get out of Willow, both in this and the next segment, but she puts Saraya in the corner and pins both her and Harley after crashing through them. Really, really, really fun stuff at the end. A very fun last-minute substitute, honestly. Willow can do no wrong, really. And then later, we have up the ramp after this match, some jaw-jockeying and some action taken by Mariah May with Willow on the ramp. It was just kind of a stare down, and then Mariah May turns it physical with her title. But then backstage, Mariah May gets some payback as Willow Knight pounces her huge. And then, well, busted open, delivers a promo just basically saying she's coming after her at Wrestle Dream. So an excellent through line for the women's world title picture on the show. Ryan, we'll kick it to you. What did you think of what we got from the women's world title picture on this show?
Okay, so I liked seeing Penelope back. Like you said, it's nice to see the injured ones return. The more they can fill up, the division is awesome right now. You can never have too many good wrestlers, though. So, good pieces. So this is great. Obviously, Kip Sabian's been killing it a while, so it's good to see both ends of that doing their thing. Separately, though, was actually where my point, though. Like, they're not bringing them back to be like, we're together. Like, I like that. The match was fine. Didn't quite understand where it came from. It kind of felt like developed out of nowhere, but I went with it. I'm glad they gave Willow a 1-up. Just something. 'Cause she's going to lose, so at least give her something in this.
Well, it did kind of get developed out of nowhere because of the Brit thing, but I do appreciate that it was at least all former champions, right? Like, that's...
Yeah.
If you have to do a last-minute substitute, I think that's about as justified as you can get.
Oh, yeah, you know what? You said it, and I still didn't process it. That would... But I'm just glad, like I said, to me,
things I'm saying.
You said it, and it just wasn't clicking. I was booing the Yankees.
Woman,
in my
right?
brain. What?
Thank you, Joe.
No, it's because it's Kate.
Kate's not a woman?
It's very specific.
I am a woman, and therefore you're a misogynist. Like, it's very simple.
I am woman, hear me roar. But I just, like I said, I like that Willow gets 1-up. That matters to me. So
agreed. Joe, who, as far as I know, doesn't hate women. What did you think of everything we got here? The Penelope return, the Willow win and promo. Your thoughts on that?
Great to see Penelope back after her injury and being factored into a feud right away. So, especially with Jamie, who's beloved by the crowd. So I feel like that instantly gives Penelope, a good amount of fun heat from the crowd and people be invested in it. I feel like it's been a while since we really had much of that for Penelope. Willow was a good win. She's kind of the break glass in case of emergency, or you can use her. You put her into a match, she's going to deliver. The crowd behind her. I like that as she's gone on over the past year or so, they've developed more of this on-off switch with her that she can really turn on the aggressive, violent side beyond the smiling and dancing and laughing and hugging side. So I'd like to see that aggression, kind of like the pounce out of nowhere. That was a nice little payback for the cheap shots she got from Mariah before. But yeah, I think the 4-way match was good, especially when you can put Saraya in the match, but having 4 people, Saraya didn't have to carry the match by any means. She was kind of there for almost like a comic relief spot here and there. And I thought that worked out well because you have 3 powerhouses and then you have Saraya.
3 powerhouses. So some good stuff there. We will move along here, unfortunately, to setting up this match with Rocky Romero. It's the Lurdy Tree trying to get under Rocky's skin and saying, oh my god, are you going to be a lackey your whole life? Who cares? But after that, we get Jay White with Juice Robinson coming out, and he's just the most fun silly goose in the whole wide world. Quick 2-minute squash there with the Uranagi into the Blade Runner for the win, but after the match, he gives what I thought was a really, really strong promo about how Paige has meddled in his business and that Hangman is coming for him, which I really like because he has Christian Cage put him out of action, and the other person that prevented him to getting to a title shot was Hangman Page, right? So that's all clean and makes sense. So Jay White's got his eyes on the prize at Gold, but they're going to focus first on Page and White at Wrestle Dream. And I dig it. I dig this a lot. And I think the most important part is the acknowledgement that Jay White is a top competitor, and they brought him in to face the top heel in the company on his return. Like, they're done fucking around, it feels like. So some good stuff there. Joe, we'll go to you. Your thoughts on this Rocky Romero match getting set up with the Idiot and and all this wonderful Jay White deliciousness that I'm so excited for.
Oh, Rocky Romero and Jericho. I mean, sure. It seems a little weird to try to manipulate Rocky, who's knows the business so well, and you're trying to tell us that he's really that naive to fall for the oldest trick in the book and be under Jericho's learning tree when, Jericho could probably learn a lot of things from Rocky. So
yeah, it's not his first day at school here. You know what I mean? Like, he knows better.
At least his third.
At least.
And the Jay White match, the only thing about the Jay White match was I was really surprised how much offense Cody, I can't remember his last name, Cody got in.
Cody Chun, I think?
Yeah. How much offense he got in, unless they were really telling the story of, Jay had a little ring rust. Because I was just kind of surprised that he got a good chunk of the match, offense. But I thought it was going to be a straight squash. But yeah, I'm looking forward to him and Heyman. That has the possibility to maybe steal the show for me at Wrestle Dream.
I agree. I feel like the build has not been strong into Wrestle Dream, but they tend to do this thing where they give you extremely high work rate if the build isn't great. So I don't hate that, but I agree. This match was only 2 minutes and 10 seconds long, but that you did get that like DDT for the 2 from Cody in this. This wasn't like a typical squash where it was just a couple of moves. But Ryan, your thoughts on this Rocky nonsense? Because I don't know who comes out better for that match. Like, what is productive about that? But more importantly, Switchblade, Hangman, headed into Wrestle Dream. What do you think about all this?
So I'm thinking after the learning tree versus Romero match, Jericho versus Romero, that Romero should go with the learning tree and he should team up with Jericho. And you'd have Romerico. It's a perfect name. Like, what a great name, Romerico. Second of all, I know you agree. You're thinking about it so long. You're like, God, you want to criticize it, but you're like, he's right. It's awesome.
I was just trying to no-sell it so you would just move on. But
do I ever just move on? Be serious here. I also want to know why you guys keep treating 2 minutes and 10 seconds like it's super quick. It's blowing my mind. But
match needed blue too. Right, told us.
But yeah, that promo just reinforces the idea to me that Jay has to win. It's he needs this victory way more.
Agreed, and I actually think it's more intriguing if Hangman loses for his character too. Like what happens next for him. So good stuff happening there, and also good to learn that Hook is not a snitch. Okay, we see Hook who's backstage talking a bunch of shit on his dad. Or his dad's attacker, I should say. My bad on that. But Kip Sabian passes by. Then we see Christian Cage and Mama Wayne and Nick Wayne coming in. And Christian Cage says he lost Killswitch to a serious medical situation so he can sympathize with the loss of Hook's father. I'm just going to keep hoping it's Ricky Starks that comes back in spots. I would love it if Ricky Starks took out Taz. I think that would be so much fun. But a lot of people are saying it could be Hook himself. Some people were theorizing that it was Christian before all of this. Ryan, we'll start with you. What do you think about this? And I love that Christian Cage asks if he's seen Kip Sabian, and he's like, "Nah, man."
Yeah, I mean, Hook just doesn't snitch. I like it, and he looks around like he's gonna consider it. I mean, they're clearly setting up that Christian attacked Taz. Like that is the story that they're going with here, which I'm okay with. I like Hook versus Christian. I think that's a fun story, and I like Kip Sabian being peppered in with his.
I want them to swerve the story instead.
Oh, and into what? That Kip Sabian attacked Taz?
That somebody. I mean, I'll forever want it to be Ricky, but somebody, or if it was Hook himself, I think a heel turn could be fun. Samoa Joe, a lot of possibilities.
What if Taz attacked Taz?
Taz with two Z's?
Two of you made the same joke.
Since you and I are simpatico, what did you think about what we got here?
I don't know how you missed Kip Sabian, because it wasn't like it was that long until Christian and the patriarchy came on camera. So they should have seen Kip run away in eye shot, but
Maybe he hid behind something real fast.
That's true. He's a little bit smaller guy. I Christian Hook is fine for me, I guess. I don't know what they're doing with it. And I do kind of hope that it'd be more fun if Hook took out Taz. I agree there. I think it would freshen up his character a little bit more. He's trying to, he gave up the FCW belt. He's trying to get out of his dad's shadow. What better way than to old yellow your dad and just,
Old Yeller, your dad.
take him out of the woodshed and, eliminate him, and you have no shadow left.
It's true. You can't be in the shadow of someone if they're in the hospital, as I always say. So, good development there. We'll see what is next, but we move on to our second women's match of the night. Very happy to see this. Mercedes Moné and Emi Sakura. We did have a quick promo here where Mercedes essentially says that Emi's been wrestling longer than she's been alive, so she has a ton of respect for her, but never forget that Moné changes everything. And man, I thought this was one of Mercedes' best matches since she's been back. I had such a blast with this. A lot of fun stuff in here. Loved the way that Camille was peripherally involved. Loved that she didn't go for the Monet Maker on opponents that are too big for her to cleanly deliver that to. I thought that was really, really nicely done. But this was a bunch of fun. And not that surprising to me because I feel like Mercedes is at her best when she's with opponents like maybe of Emi's stature and ring style. Like that always seems to click in really nice for her. But the whip into the ropes where Camille trips Emi I thought was so great. And Emi tapping out is perfectly fine. This was a really good 10-minute match. And then we have Chris running down after, and man, it's weird that she's just a face again. Like, I don't care about dropping the Stokely partnership or anything like that. Do what you want to do if you want to move on from things, but they made her a heel in that feud. She won the feud. And then all of a sudden she's a good gal again is something that's very, very weird to me. But Joe, let's start with you. What did you think of this Mercedes match? I thought it was a blast. And then on top of that, how are you feeling about the fact that Chris, they just literally flipped a switch on and she's on the good side again?
I like the match a lot with Mercedes and Emi. To your point, I do feel like she did really well, especially working that almost a Japanese style of a match with her opponents. A lot of good striking, and I loved Emi mocking her. I liked Emi doing the Monet dance.
Yes, that was very fun.
She's always entertaining. I thought, Emi tapping out, that's fine. I thought it was a good way to keep her strong by having that Camille interference before they could get the statement, whatever she calls it now, the statement, whatever, the crossface. But the stat thing was a weird thing. It happened, like you said, it happened overnight, and now she's going after Mercedes. I feel like we need more of a build for this. I have no problem with her if she wants to be kind of a face or a tweener or whatever you want to call her. I know her whole gimmick now is being a born-again Christat. So it's fun.
Born-again Christat, yeah.
No, repent your sins, but I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more story between the two of them.
I agree, and I actually wouldn't hate this. Ryan, I'll get your thoughts on this specifically, but like I could see them hot potatoing the title on this. They don't do that a lot, and making Chris a multi-time champion in that mid-card title, I think, is a good idea. If Ryan is awake or alive over there,
he's awake and alive. He was listening.
He looked very like. Whenever you lean forward, I don't know what's happening with your face.
And I just wanted to lean, and I didn't realize it was doing that. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just like, is he alive over there?
No, I was listening. I was listening to your guys talk.
What do you think about the possibility of hot potatoing it a little bit? Like, I don't know if Mercedes needs one long reign. I think her being kind of a stakeholder in that belt and letting other people win and win it back could be something that's very fun. I think Chris could be a really fun dance partner to do that with. How did you feel about the match overall, and what do you think about the Chris Statlander abrupt face turn here?
So wait, what are we talking about? I was listening.
We'll just move on. We can move on to the Osprey segment if you want.
Osprey. The match was. I like that when Emi Sakura was walking out, they explained where she's been, that she's been back in Japan, and then that's why she hasn't been around. Like, I like that. It's not like, oh, we're just pulling her out for a match. It's like, no, she hasn't been here. And Mercedes did a very good job of building her up. You knew she wasn't going to win, but it made the match fun. And you guys were saying that Mercedes does wrestle the Japanese style a little bit better, and I like that. Yeah, the stat thing is weird. Realistically, they could have explained it in 2 seconds of being like,
she did kind of justify it on Rampage, but like I just more mean like they made her a different heel than any other women's wrestler, I feel like. And then they were like, nah, she's a face for convenience.
Well, I mean, we need convenience.
That's fair. There's stores of them everywhere.
Yeah, and I love them. They have chips and chocolate and soda and other goodies for me.
Conveniently need.
I probably not, but I want.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, yeah, the Chris stuff is weird, but I think post weirdness she'll do great with it. She's very likable. She's very easy to get behind as a face. We've seen it before, right? And you do have 2 heel champions, so I get it from that perspective. I just would have done some creative work about it, but
You just don't know the mind of an alien, and that's your fault.
that is extremely accurate. But we got back-to-back segments here, both of which I thought were very weird, to be perfectly honest. We have Renee backstage with Private Party and Stokely Hathaway. Rare Stokely L from the creative perspective, I did not like this. He says that, like, just like Private Party and when he's out there, they've both been killing it lately. And I'm like, Private Party's mostly been getting squashed except for winning that qualifier match. Like, they got their asses handed to them like 3 weeks in a row by the Blackpool Combat Club. Like, they have not been on some heater, but whatever. And I like Private Party's response. They say, oh, so now you want to get with us. Like, right after we're starting to pick up some momentum. Okay. Where have you been the past 5 years exactly? So I dig that, and Stokely kind of gives us the classic, like, you'll regret this one day. Guess this is what Stokely's moving on to. We'll ping pong it back to Ryan here. And actually, let's kill both of these segments at once. We get Top Flight, who's standing backstage like a boy band. And Darius and Dante are basically saying that they're better than the teams that they lost to for this qualifier match. Action Andretti blames them. Layla Gray. Yeah, I always say Layla Hirsch when I mean Layla Gray. Layla Gray blames Action Andretti and says his actions are what caused the loss last week. So some dissension there, which I've been asking them to clarify whether they're a trio or a tag team for a long time now. But Ryan, what do you think of both of these segments?
So I'm with you. I didn't like the Private Party Stokely segment, except for like that evil, like, I'll get you at the end. But
kids? Yeah.
You meddling Private Party kids. I like the Private Party. Like, one LT said he's like the Private Party's promo. I like the Private Party section of it, but like,
very well delivered, very well done.
They don't need Stokely. Like, what they're doing, let them be on their own. They're finally getting some momentum behind them. People seem to understand that even though they haven't been winning overall, things seem to be looking different for them. Let them play it out. The Action Andretti Top Flight thing is needed. Like you said, are you a trio? Are you a tag? What are you? It's clear Andretti's going to go heel, but he's right.
That's okay though too, right?
No. I want him to be wrong.
But the best heel promos are often truthful.
So this was actually said online, and I didn't. And it was. I saw the interaction happening on Kate's Twitter. So, but it was nice and actually a pleasant interaction. I think Kate was having with someone. I didn't jump in, but the person saying like they got sick of all these justified heels, and I think there's a point to that where heels should only be justified in their own minds. Like,
well, as opposed to becoming the Judas in their minds.
Yes, exactly. You got it.
I would like to see Action Andretti become a part of the learning tree, though.
For once, it wasn't me.
It makes sense in my head.
Then she caught me on
Well,
the camera.
there'd be at least a
Wasn't-
payoff of him beating Action Andretti beating Chris Jericho. That is something that they just completely dropped. But I'll tell you what they did not drop, and that's the ball with this Ospreay segment. Huh? How's that for a segue? You get Ospreay coming to the ring, and he says he was all excited to just beat Ricochet and move on last week, but no, Takeshita had to interfere, and he knows how the Callis family works, and he wants to know if Don Callis was the one to set all this up. Don Callis comes out, he tries to hug him, Will Ospreay stiff arms him, says no. And they have this little, did you order Takeshita to come out thing that got so heated it reminded me of A Few Good Men when he's like,
did you order the code red?
Right, I did! Yeah, it was very, very heated in that specific way. And Don kind of alludes to a lot with Ospreay. He says last week sucked doing that to him, and he recounts all the good times they had when they were beating Jericho and beating Kenny. And Will Ospreay says this is about last week, not last year. And he says that Will was too mentally weak to bring the tag titles home to the Callis family. And Will Ospreay says that he is going to leave the family. We get this very like, you can't fire me, I quit kind of thing. Of course, we get everybody running out here. We get Takeshita, who comes behind him. The big centerpiece of this being Kyle Fletcher, who gets offered the screwdriver, turns to Will, but refuses to do it. And then we have Ricochet coming out to make the save here. Very weird that you just hired your new heavy in Lance Archer and that he is nowhere to be seen for this.
He was in orientation.
You know, he could have been in Callis family orientation. He was getting his blood drawn to see how far away he was from being like actual bloodline here. But Joe, we'll start with you. What did you think of this segment? I thought it was a lot of moving parts, but extremely well done.
Yeah, agreed. I think having Ospreay come in, based on tonight's show, I'm a sucker for when characters can come and flip and switch and become more serious. And Ospreay was very much, it wasn't his usual big smile playing to the crowd. He was very single track focused on Callis. And I liked that energy from him other than his usual Labrador energy we get. And I felt like watching this was just like watching a breakup where the first breakup when Ospreay left the Callis family, it felt like one of the things when both people say, oh yeah, it's a mutual party. We both decided to be cordial and go our own ways, but really Callis didn't want to split. And this is now the ugly breakup where, you know, the jilted lover Callis gets his revenge and, you know, breaks up the hard way, officially his way.
Sure.
I'm interested to see what Fletcher does. I guess that's the most interesting aspect of this storyline, just to see we built Kyle up over the past few months now. What direction are they going to take him?
Sure. I'm hoping it's a babyface turn. I'm hoping it's a babyface turn and that the Callis family doesn't look like it's looked. I'll put it that way. But Ryan, most importantly, can you do the hand gesture while you give us your thoughts about this segment? Not quite. Not quite.
Joe had a good point about Ospreay being able to go from jovial to serious very quickly, and I like that. It's a shame Lance Archer was just stuck in that orientation. He would have been perfect to go in and interfere and say, you know, and really hammer it home. Ricochet making the save makes sense. He's in the triple threat. You have all that. But to Kyle Fletcher, I really want them to do a rom-com style thing here where you see him in like looking out over some water. He's then looking out a window in the rain. He may be riding a subway at some point by himself, and the music is playing clearly like sad music. And as he's doing this, you just see images of him and Ospreay together.
Can I make an amendment to your vision? And
sweetly.
And say maybe it should be when he's running like a weekend errand at Home Depot and he's walking across like screwdrivers and he's staring at various levels of screwdrivers, trying to figure out if he should use this one or that one.
So, all right, that's perfect. You start with the screwdriver, you go to an elevator.
Elevator. Hey, hey.
Then it'd have to be something British, and I don't know what that would be. So something British.
A lift.
He sees a red coat.
Are you just anything else?
No, I mean I could if you want me to.
Start naming things in your room you see.
I mean, I would let you keep rambling, but we do have to talk about the fact that Shibata's got a turkey leg in his trunks. According to Jack Perry, what a
He sees an osprey. Oh, sorry.
This was a tale of two promos smushed into one. This was very funny. There was a lot of very sincere stuff where Jack Perry is calling out Shibata for this match, highlighting all of his accolades and saying things like, you know, you're the wrestler, but these days you let your phone do the talking for you. I want to talk to you in your native tongue of violence, basically. But in this, while running down the accolades, he says, you got a turkey leg in your trunks, man, for a schlong, as we refer to it as around here. But I actually really liked this from Jack Perry. Turkey leg comment at all. Like him saying, I want to talk to you in your native language of violence, essentially. I thought that was really, really, really good stuff. Ryan, then Joe, what do you guys think of this?
You sure it was a turkey leg?
No, I'm not sure.
That's all I'm going to say.
That's fair.
Joe, your thoughts?
As a fellow Asian male, I commend Shibata for having a turkey leg in his trunks. I mean, that's breaking down stereotypes one turkey leg at a time.
Respect. I respect that, but that does lead us to our main event. They packed a lot into this 2-hour episode because I feel like we've been flying through our review and we're almost at 2 hours already, but very, very, very fun tag match. You do have Pac tapping out to Danielson and Mox coming out at the end here to set up the moment, which, in case you didn't already think that Mox was winning, you do get some wrestling math thrown into this that tells you Mox will probably be going over Danielson at Wrestle Dream. Very fun match. These guys are all incredible. Of course, it was going to be the moment where Wheeler turns on Danielson on Saturday is going to ruin my life. I will be just hiding under the covers listening to Adele and crying. I'll just be so sad. But Joe, what did you think of our main event here? Take us home on this episode. What did you think?
It was everything I thought it would be, knowing these four guys and them knowing each other so well and having such a history. Thought it was going to be a great, go home match for them. I appreciated we got to hear Final Countdown on Dynamite, which I don't know if we had that before. So I like how they're making every appearance feel special,
especially in Seattle, or Washington at least,
I appreciated the attention to having matching colored gear for each tag team, black and kind of maroon. So I appreciated that little piece of detail. I like the continual mind games that Claudio played with Wheeler all through the match, up until the end. And have we talked about the ending part yet, or do you want to wait for the post match?
Take us home with it. Go for it.
So the beatdown of Wheeler, as when Brian chased off Moxley and went up the ramp with him, and Wheeler was left in the ring to get beat on by Marina and Claudio and Pac. The one thing that told me that, Wheeler's going to turn is Brian came back down to the ring to chase him off. He really never checked on Wheeler for a long, long time. He played up to the crowd. He's leading yes chants, and it goes to the fact of what Claudio said, that Brian never really looked out for Wheeler, and Wheeler's there in pain, looking up at Brian, not looking back down at him. I thought that was very telling and very, poignant. So that's when I feel like Wheeler's going to just turn on take a living crap out of Brian tomorrow or Saturday.
I agree. I want to beat the living crap out of Ryan on Saturday, but I don't think we're going to have the chance to do that, unfortunately. But if you want to take us home here, Ryan, your thoughts on this closing match and to Joe's point, kind of the invitation to leave the logic open for Wheeler to make the turn this weekend. Some really, really well done storytelling, in my opinion, on this angle.
Yeah, so match was fine. I mean, it was a tag match between opposing forces, and the nice thing is that there was no established team, so it made sense the way it broke out. Like, I hate when there's one established team and one thrown together team, but they kind of all had the same amount of experience with each other. Actually, Yuta and Danielson theoretically have more, but yeah, I don't like. I liked the Danielson mock stuff. I wasn't thrilled with the Yuta stuff. It just felt a little. You know what it was? It felt like they were delaying till Danielson came back, and I could feel it.
Sure.
And that just didn't hit for me. But I'm excited for WrestleDream.
I am medium excited for WrestleDream too. I'll be more excited when these pay-per-views are on Max, because it feels like you're asking a lot of your audience. I review them, so I'm lucky enough that I get to reimburse them. But man, this stretch has been a lot with All Out, All In, Grand Slam, and this. Like, this has been overload. I feel like they've got to maybe pace things out a little bit easier, but I think the work rate is going to be very high. Like, I feel medium excited, and then you think about the fact we're getting Hangman versus Jay White and the triple threat with Takeshita and Ospreay and Ricochet, and then of course the main event and the women's picture. Like, there's the wrestling's going to be fantastic, as it always is. So a lot of good stuff there, but we hope you enjoy watching WrestleDream this weekend. We hope you enjoyed watching Dynamite yesterday. We're going to wrap things up around here. We're going to skip our usual t-shirt plugs. You know where to find them. We told you earlier in the episode, but I will give these fellas a chance to plug their shit. Joe, where can people find you?
Sure. You can find me on social media at _Asian Joe. If you're watching YouTube right now, you'll see the little name under mine. So go ahead, follow me there for random stuff, and you can find my serial review blog linked in my bio.
Hell yeah. And Ryan, who runs our Mark Order social media, where can people find you? Where can they find us as a collective?
They can find us on all socials at Mark Order Pod, where I mostly run that. So just be cool. Just be cool, man. Be cool. You can also follow my history blog, hereforhistory.com, at _hereforhistory on social. Actually, the other day, I live tweeted a very historically accurate episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when they cracked the Liberty Bell. So
as true of a documentary as there ever was, the It's Always Sunny cracking the Liberty Bell episode. Fantastic stuff. You can catch me at Miss Kate Fabe on social media. You can catch me on Fightful, Mondays on Select doing your Sour Graps Raw review, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday on the main channel doing your NXT. Yesterday it was NXT and Dynamite, but NXT, ROH, and SmackDown reviews, except this Friday, where I'll be at Excite Wrestling doing commentary. So check that out. Excite Wrestling without an E, because wrestling knows no vowels. But check that out. I'll also be on the Fightful Select post show for WrestleDream. But every Wednesday that I can be here with these fellas, this is where I'm hanging out, talking all things All Elite. Have a safe and wonderful rest of your wrestling week. Goodbye and good night. Go Yankees!
Stanton!